Yvette, just go to YvetteErasmus.com. Very popular therapist around town, does so many things in this world. And so help me, give her a round of applause and help her welcome you.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy New Year. It's lovely to see so many of you again. As usual, I start off nervous and anxious, and then give me 3 minutes and everything will be fine again. Goodness. It's a delight to be here with you again this morning. The theme this month is the multidimensional human. And when Gary told me that that's what he would like me to speak on this morning, I thought, wow, I hope I get a whole day, because I went around and around trying to figure out what to focus on for the 40 minutes we really have. Because, you could do anything, especially if you work with energy. There's all kinds of levels of energy that we could be talking about, or we could be talking about the sound spectrum and the dimensions of sound, or the light spectrum and the dimensions of light. All of these live within us, impact us, are a part of who we are. So it was very difficult for me to sort out what I was going to focus on. And then I thought about the fact that, what does it mean to be just an individual human being in this experience, the spiritual being living in the human experience at this point in history? And what are we really called to be thinking about, experiencing, evolving, transmuting, transforming? And there are really 3 realms in which I generally speak and teach. The first realm is the realm of self-awareness. One dimension for us to be aware of is the self. How aware are you of the various levels of yourself, of all of the parts of who you are? This is pretty multidimensional right there. And then we move into relational awareness. What is actually happening between you and another subjectivity? So there's the relationship between you and yourself. There's the relationship between you and one other person. There's the relationship between you and a group of people. There's a relationship between you and life. And then the third realm that is very rich for exploration is spiritual awareness. And that's part of what we come together here to grow, to think about, to contemplate, to explore, to enrich ourselves. And so what I want to talk a little bit about today is about moving from shadows and into light. If you think about the continuum of darkness to light, and you think about everything that is in the shadow realms, in any of those 3 realms that I just spoke about. The shadow realms are the realms of the unconscious, the things you don't know about yourself, the things that you have disowned in yourself, the parts of yourself that you judge and don't like, and so you send them into the shadows. The parts of you that are fearful, judgmental, unconscious, and that you have generally absorbed from your programming and your socialization. It's all the raw material that you're given to work with in this lifetime. And then as I see it, the journey towards light is beginning to harvest, get curious about, move into what is in the shadows, and we develop practices for bringing it into the light. We transform what is in the shadows into the light. And this is the process, as I understand it, of enlightenment, bringing more and more light, activating the light within you, activating the light within yourself and others, and looking for the light. So, in this developmental, and I am very much a developmentalist, but not in the hierarchical kind. When I speak about development, I'm thinking about the kind of development where you transcend and include a previous stage. So the kind of development that happens when you are an acorn and you grow into a seedling, and then you grow into a little baby tree, and then you grow into a huge oak. You still contain the acorn, and there's nothing wrong with a quote-unquote lower stage. There's something in our culture right now where If we think about stages of development, we want to somehow make all previous stages bad or wrong or inferior or less than, which is very problematic. In fact, what we do is as we leave one stage, we want to send it into the shadow realms. Right? And we want to say, now we're in the right stage and the good stage, and whichever one you're in, that's the right one and the good one, by the way. And the one you just left is now the bad one. And then in your relational awareness, you've got to watch out, because then you're going to go find all the people who are still in the stage you just left, and you're going to try and tell them how unevolved they are. They don't generally respond well to this. And just remember, it doesn't really matter where you are along any continuum. That's part of the dynamic. Don't bring judgment. Bring compassion to whatever stages you are encountering. So what I wanted to do today is something a little different than what I've usually done. Usually I stand up here and talk, which I will still do. But I want to do something a little bit more interactive with you today. And of course, the thing I'd like to do with you would normally take me about 3 hours to do well. And so I grappled around with this because I thought, well, I'm not going to really be able to walk you through the experiential of this activity. But we can play a little bit with some pieces of it to give you a taster of the activity. And then if it's something that you'd really like to experience in its fullness, at the end, I can let you know where you can go and do that and where you can walk your way through it. And some of you probably have already done an activity like this before. It comes out of sort of a voice dialogue practice. A lot of shadow work people will be working with something like this. Genpo Roshi runs something very similar to this called Big Mind. So if you're familiar with any of those, this will be very familiar to you. And what I'd like to do is explore the various dimensions of yourself today and give you an opportunity to inhabit various parts of yourself and to explore the dimensionality within you. Now, ideally, we'd be able to move through at least 15 parts of you, but we probably won't have time, so it's not going to be as rich as I wish, but it's going to be very rich anyway. So when I do this exercise with people, a variety of things can come up. I'm going to ask you to inhabit the voice of a part of yourself, okay, but not this self. So I'd like you for a moment to just think about yourself and think about this self. Who am I as this self? And this activity is just a little experiment in getting a little bit of distance from you and the self. So contemplate that for a moment. The distance between you and the self. Now I'm going to ask you to start inhabiting different voices. And some people, you may discover that any one of the voices that I bring in today is actually a disowned voice for you. And if you discover that you just can't get into a particular voice, just observe, watch, get curious, and just hang out and listen to what some other people have to say. Not every voice will resonate. It depends really on how much disowned material you have. And I'm just going to ask you to flow with it and keep an open mind and just see how you go through the experience. Okay. So the very first voice that I'd like to speak to in you is I would like, and what I'm going to ask you to do in a moment is just shift your position physically so that you can move into the voice of the protector. Okay? So shift a little bit, and now I'm not speaking to the self. Now I'm speaking to the protector. So who are you? The protector. Okay. And this is going to be sort of one at a time. Just shout out some answers if you're comfortable. But as the protector, what is your job? To protect. And to ensure safety. And who are you protecting? The self. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your job. I'm now speaking to the protector, and I'd like you to take the voice. So as the protector, tell me about your job. As the protector, I guard. I what? I create fear. The protector actually does not create fear. As the protector, I might protect you from fear. I put up barriers. That is my job. As the protector, I put up barriers. I stay vigilant. Yeah. My primary purpose is to provide safety for the self. I stay on guard. I stay closed. As the protector, I'm pretty closed. Yeah, I've got a real closed, protective, contained energy. I stay alert. Yes. Yes. Do you ever sleep? No. Nope. It's a 24/7 job, being the protector. 24/7. Okay, I'm going to have you switch. We could spend a lot of time with each of these voices, but we're going to do a little abbreviated version today. So this is a dimension of yourself, is the protector. Okay. The next part of you that I'd like to speak to, and I'd like you to shift positions, actually. I'd like to speak to the controller. Okay, who are you? The controller. And as the controller, what is your job description? To stay safe, that's what you try to do. What do you actually do? Perhaps I manipulate. Sorry, you have to shout out a little bit. The controller does not feel very small. The self, that's the self speaking. The self is speaking and saying, I don't like the controller. The controller keeps me small. So I'm going to have you shift back into you are the controller. Your job is to control. And monitor. What do you control? Everything you can. That is your job. You are the controller. Your job is to control everything that you can. And what all does that include? Everything. Absolutely. I need to control the self. Why? The self is dangerous. Without me, without the controller, what would the self get? But the self would get up to all kinds of dangerous stuff. And the self would do all sorts of self-destructive things. So that's my job. The controller comes on board to gain control over the self. What else does the controller need to gain control over? Everybody else. Everybody else. Emotions, thoughts, other people, the climate, the weather, the traffic, other drivers. Right? Okay. So this is the part of you that functions as the controller. Why do you want to control everything? To make sure the self is okay, to make sure the self is safe. How much appreciation do you get for your job? None. Especially not from other people. Especially not from other people. Okay. So let's shift again. The next voice I'd like to speak to is the skeptic. Change position. I'd like you to now inhabit the voice of the skeptic. Okay. Okay. This is always a fun one. What's your job? To question everything. Doubt everything. Who do you work for? The self. Yep. And what's it like? What's it like being the skeptic? It's lonely. It's not good. Tell me more. It's heavy. Super burdened. Angry. A lot of uncertainty, unsure about a lot of things. Frustrated, what else? Conflicted. Yes, as the skeptic, I'm really conflicted. I actually don't really know what to believe, so I believe nothing. A lot of distrust. I don't know what to trust, so I help, and I need to help the self not trust anything either. Okay? The skeptic also, the skeptic is very invested in helping the self not buy into everything that comes across the self's path. If it weren't for me, the self would be purchasing every online course and attending every workshop and buying into every naive whatever. The self needs me for critical thinking. Anything else about the skeptic? Okay, yeah. As the skeptic, I have a lot of mistrust of others in the world. And I don't really have a belief system, which is both the light side of the skeptic and potentially the dark side of the skeptic. It's very lonely. I push other people away, I push theory away, I push belief systems away. Constant worry. As the skeptic, I'm constantly worried. Which one is right? Is it this? Is it that? I really look for the holes in everything. I look for what is wrong with everything. This is the self speaking now. As the self is beginning to see all of the parts, the self is being very judgmental of these parts. They're very dramatic. I love the self. Okay, let's move back let's change again. And I'd like to speak to the voice of fear. I'd like to speak to the voice of fear. Who are you? I am fear. Okay, I am fear. Okay, tell me about you, the voice of fear. What's your job?
Point out danger.
My job is to point out danger. Sorry?
Survival.
And my job is to make sure the self survives. Yes. And how do I help the self survive? Being vigilant, being afraid of everything. I am definitely alert and hypervigilant. And my job is to be afraid. Okay? Because if it wasn't for me, what would the self be doing? The self would do anything it wants. If it wasn't for me, that self would be jumping out there doing everything, even the dangerous things. My job is to evoke enough fear in the self that it doesn't just go out there and do everything that could be dangerous. Okay, I am the voice that sounds the alarm. I am actually the voice that is scanning all the time for danger. Now, I work with the protector and I work with the controller, but actually this is the voice of fear, which is separate from those two. Okay? And how does the self feel about you? The self is very tired of you. Yes, in fact, for many of us, the self would like to get rid of you. Yes, and what would happen if the self got rid of you? Yeah, well, the self would be very happy. The self would experience more. The self would experience more. Sorry? So get back into the voice of fear. Try to inhabit I am fear. Yes. 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 Try to get back in what it's like to be the voice of fear. That's right. You cannot get rid of me. You need me. If you didn't have me, you would die. You would not survive if you didn't have me. Yeah. Anything else that comes up as fear that you'd like to put into the space? So you're speaking again as the self. And so let me point and let me just point this out to you if we're going to talk about dimensions of the human being for a moment. One of the things, I'm going to step out of the activity and we're going to get back in it for a moment. One of the things that we want to do as human beings is become fully integrated, full functioning, transcendent, enlightened, whole selves. And that journey is one of both transcending and including all parts. And the journey of transcending and including all parts is a challenging one because we are trained to judge some parts as bad. And our analytical mind wants to jump in and make certain aspects of ourselves good and other aspects of ourselves bad. And it perpetuates a tremendous amount of inner conflict, which is fine. Which is fine. But just see that clearly. And so depending upon the kinds of families and cultures and experiences you've had in your life up until now, there will be parts of yourself that you've decided are bad and that you need to be in battle with. And other parts of yourselves that are good that you need to elevate. To the degree that you're not fully conscious of this, it will create a split in your psyche. And to the degree that it creates a split in your psyche, you will be in inner conflict. You will not have your whole self pulling energetically in one direction. You'll stall out in places. So all I'm trying to do today is give you an opportunity to just begin to inhabit parts of yourself that you might see as limiting or dramatic or bad in some way. And I'm inviting you to just for a few minutes be that and know the experience of your life from that perspective. Because when you can do that, you have access to far more multidimensionality, information, wholeness, choices. Does that make sense? Just as a frame. It's just an activity. This is just a game, really. It's just something to play with. So watch in yourself when you want to talk about the voice instead of being the voice, because that tells you a little bit about your relationship with that aspect. You want distance from that aspect and you want to analyze and look at it. It's difficult to be it. And we all have these. We all have these parts of ourselves that we don't want to actually inhabit. We'd rather look at from a distance. So let's go back let's get out of fear. Fear is not so much fun. What I'd like you to do is move into a far more fun voice, the victim. All right. I'd like you to move into the victim. So, who are you? I am the victim. I am the victim. What's it like being the victim? Powerless. Vulnerable. Helpless. I'm not responsible. As the victim, I am not responsible for what happened to me. There was nothing I could do. It's not my fault. As the victim, it is not my fault. I was victimized. And I want sympathy. I absolutely want sympathy. I want you to really understand how hard it is for me, the victim. And so how do I do that? I tell a story. I tell the story of what happened to the self. Okay? And the way in which I tell the story of what happened to the self is really going to bat for the self. It wasn't the self's fault. You won't believe what happened. And there was nothing I could do. Okay? And I'm making light of it, but that is a very real experience. There are absolutely things that happen to us where we do not have the capacity to stop it. And so the voice of the victim carries that, carries the story of that experience. How does the self feel about you? Ashamed, pitiful, the self might be angry that it can't do anything. The self might want to get rid of you. Okay, but the self cannot get rid of you. You are the one who holds the story. You are the one who holds the records. Okay? The voice of the victim. You are the one who acknowledges that we are not able to do whatever we want whenever we want. You are the one that holds the tragedies that, despite all the best efforts of the protector and the skeptic and the controller, it sometimes doesn't work. Okay? Okay. All right. Let's change positions. Similar self, but different. I'd like you to move into the wounded self, or the damaged self. Okay? The wounded self or the damaged self. Who are you? The wounded and damaged self. Yeah. What's your job? To suffer the experiences of suffering, the experiences of misery, but what's your job? You are the one who's going to survive. You are the one who throws yourself in front of every bullet. You are the one who jumps in and collects every wound so that the self doesn't have to. Okay? Every experience that happened and hurt, it's the wounded self that jumps in and takes it. You are the one who carries the wounds and who carries the damage. And if it weren't for you, what would happen to all of these other voices? They would suffer. So what does that make you? A hero. A hero indeed. How heroic. How heroic that you are part of the system, because you are still here. You are still here taking all of the hits. And you don't even get to tell the story, because who tells the story? The victim. Okay. It's also, by the way, a waste of time trying to fix you. Do you get that? It's a waste of time. As the damaged self, as the wounded self, what do you really need? Compassion, love, understanding, hope, courage. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, shift. I want to speak to the voice of the fixer. Maybe you have one of these. All right, inhabit the voice of the fixer. Who are you? The fixer. Okay, and what's your job? To fix everything, make everything all better. And who would you like to fix? Everybody. Starting with whom? The self. Most particularly that wounded self. Right? You want to fix the self, you want to fix other people, you want to fix the political systems, you want to fix global warming, everything. What do you pay attention to as the fixer? All the problems out there. Everything that needs to be fixed. It's a thankless job. Right? Constantly trying to fix everything. It's exhausting. As the fixer, it's absolutely exhausting. Oh, when are you going to get it all done? Never. Never. There will always be something else to fix. Yes? Okay. Switch again. I want to speak to the innocent child. Can you take a moment to settle into the innocent child? All right. Take in for a moment the innocent child within you. Tell me about you. What's it like to be the innocent child? Playful, happy, magical, divine, light-hearted. As the innocent child, I am light-hearted, divine, magical, playful. What else? Free. Fearless. I just want to explore the world and play. Say that again? Dreamer. It's very dreamy being the innocent child. Sometimes as the innocent child, the skeptic and the controller and the fixer don't take me very seriously. Oh, but they all wish I was me. they all wish they were the innocent child. Oh, they're quite happy in their roles. Yeah. The self would like to be more like the innocent child, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. This is the part of you that is really unharmed, right? This is the part of you that existed prior to any kind of harm. The innocent, playful, open, creative, almost perfect. And there he or she or they are inside of you. There it is, a dimension of your experience that you have access to at any time. The voice of the innocent child. Let's play with a few more. I want to speak to the seeker. Shift and get into the role of the seeker. I want that voice to come out. Who are you? The seeker. What's your job? I'm curious and I look for options. My job is to seek. Gather information. And what are you seeking? Truth, knowledge, love, awareness, understanding, wholeness. Yep. Yep. Do you ever find what you are seeking? No. The seeker is not the finder. Okay? The seeker does not find. The job of the seeker is to seek. In fact, it's probably the seeker that brought you in here this morning. Okay? The seeker's job is to keep seeking, not necessarily finding, but seeking. One of the things that the seeker seeks is the way. Okay, so I want to speak to a subset of the seeker for a moment. I want to talk to the seeker of the way. Can you inhabit that part of you a little bit more fully? Like, just take some time to get to know, I am the seeker of the way. I am the seeker of the way. Let's sit with this. What do you notice as the voice, the part of you that seeks the way? So many paths. There are so many ways. So many what? Circles around. Yes. Yes, so much to explore. So much work. So many things to find out. Just never ends. Trying to find the way, the seeker of the way, and how am I going to decide what is the way? I keep trying a way, and then I try another way, and then I try another way. But I'm looking for the way. Yes. Yes. Yes, indeed. And what is this way that you're seeking? Peace? Solutions? Sorry? Ease, truth, a way of being. Sorry? Identity. I didn't catch the other one. Peace and harmony. The creator, it's elusive. Did I catch that right? Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to talk to another subset of the seeker. I want to talk to the follower of the way. Can you find the part of you that is the follower of the way? What do you notice as the follower of the way? Everything. What do you notice? What else do you notice? Let's get a little more specific. A sense of purpose. Yes, the seeker of the way, the follower of the way, is really looking for a sense of purpose and meaning. And in being that voice, they're providing purpose and meaning. Okay? So seeking and following, in some ways, provides some of the sense of meaning and purpose for the self. Yeah. As the follower of the way, how is that different from the seeker of the way? What do you see as the same and different between these two voices, the seeker of the way versus the follower of the way? The seeking is exploring the options. The follower chooses and practices, obeys. So the follower of the way surrenders to a way. The seeker does not. Does that make sense? The seeker does not necessarily surrender, nor will the skeptic. But the follower of the way will surrender in the short term, until they decide not to a way for a period of time. So there's a submission, there's a surrendering to something greater than that voice or than the self as part of that journey. Okay. So I want to just move into a couple of the transcendent voices for a moment. These are more of the manifest voices, but what I'd like to do right now is have you shift gears. And I would like to speak to the voice that is the way. Okay. Who are you? You are the way. And as the way, what do you notice? Clarity, confidence, declaration, direction, trust, light, openness, purpose, community, unity, community. I want you to take a moment and just get into this voice a little bit more fully. I am the way. I am the voice of the way. As this voice, how do I experience life? Let's say that again. Proudly. Confidently. There's no fear as the way. There's a lot of movement and flow. There's a lot of knowing. There's an excitement. There's a tingly, energetic sense to it. Enthusiasm. Joy. All right, one more. Ease. Shift into the voice of big heart. Big heart. Who are you? Big heart. What do you notice as the voice of big heart? Love. What else? Openness, forgiveness, inclusivity, acceptance, warmth, power. Huh? Self-worth. Collaborative. For a moment, I want you to see, just go inside and see if you can find where big heart ends. How far out does it go? Can you find the limit? There is no limit. It radiates out without limit. Is there an end to big heart? No. It's expansive. It's all-encompassing. Yeah. It grows with focus. It grows with focus. As I put my attention on it, it almost comes in. I experience it more and more and more the more that I attend to it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just close up the activity. And I just want to say a few sort of integrating remarks about this. There are many more voices we could play with, and we could also spend more time with each of the voices as we go. They go from fearful and constricted voices that are needed in manifest form, right up into the experience of expansive, universal energies, all of which are a part of your experience as a human being. And you have access to all of it. And as you were pointing out, your experience in large part will be determined by what you choose to attend to. Many of you have heard me say this many times. The two big building blocks that you have are your intention, the intentions that you set in your lifetime, what it is that you're intending with every day, with every moment, with every conversation, and then how you manage that intention with the resource of your attention, what it is that you're attending to. And so we can spend a lot of energy attending to old tapes, to old scripts, to a very narrow set of parts, and we can miss the dimensionality of what we're capable of. And there's a trap on the other side. We can spend a lot of time only looking at the things we like and never really harvesting the energy and the work and the richness of all of the things that we've disowned and that we've sent into the shadows because we decide that it's bad and it's not good and we have to somehow get away from these things. And the way in which you transcend fear, for example, is by including it, not rejecting it. The way in which you transcend the controlling part of you is by making peace with it and including it, not judging and fragmenting from it. And so again and again, this part of how I encourage you to move through your lives is increasing your capacity to love everything. Every part of who you are. Get to know all of the parts of who you are, all of the dimensions. They serve a useful function. You don't want them to make all your decisions. So then we bring the self back online. And the self, the fully integrated, aware self, is able to see, is able to bring light to every part of your experience and to meet it with loving, compassionate non-judgment, so that it no longer has subversive power in your life because you've sent it into the shadows, so it's going to work underground, outside of your control. You've brought it all in. And then you can start living a more full, more graceful, more forgiving, more loving life, both with yourself inside of you, and it's also what you then have available to offer the relationships in your life, and of course, spirituality is the foundation of all of that. All of that. Because the essence of spirituality is the follower of the way who knows how to surrender to something bigger than the self. And whatever you want that to be in your life, there is an aspect of surrendering to larger principles, to universal principles that really resonate as true for you. That's a part of accessing this multidimensional experience. So I hope that was useful. I'm available for questions afterwards, and I think we're going to turn it over for right now. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let love flow through my soul. Let light flower in my heart. Let warmth radiate in my belly. Let purity shimmer in my bones. Let kindness resound in my voice. Let clarity shine through my mind. Let compassion abound in my life, touching all who I meet. Let compassion abound in the world, bringing all beings into perfect union. Thank you.